Our Heavenly Father, we're thankful to be able to be at the church again this morning and to hear the word spoken to us. We ask that you watch over us, lead us, and have us understand and to gain what we need to know from this program, and just be with our services to come next.
Amen. Now, I know last week, yes, I know last week there was it was kind of short. I know Larry had to go, Madeline was getting baptized. Y'all had a week to kind of overlook that and see that. Is there anything that y'all want to look at, refresh over, questions about? We ready to go? Everybody good? All right. In your Constitution on page 11, we'll start talking about church membership. As we get into today's part, we will talk about kind of the bylaws of the church and kind of how everything works. So in a Baptist church, membership is a sovereign, truly democratic, under the leadership of our Lord Jesus Christ. When we look at membership in a Baptist church, Baptists, we are our own body. Membership retains unto itself the right of exclusive self-government in all phases of spiritual and temporal life of this church. We, as members, when you become a member, you become a shareholder, if you will, of the church. There's no outside entity that can tell us as a Baptist church what to do. We partner. You will oftentimes hear us talk about state associations, local associations, and the Southern Baptist Convention. We are partners with them. They cannot give us direction. We actually give them direction as a local body. We believe that the local church is the starting point and finishing point of the church. The local church is its own body, its own entity. We choose who we partner with. As a member of, we are associated with the New Lebanon Baptist Association, which covers Russell, Buchanan, and part of Tazewell County. And as that association, we want to do things as local Baptist churches that we can't do apart as individuals. As we look at that and as we think about that, we then move to a state level, which we are part of BGAV. And as a BGAV church, we are combined with 1,400 other churches, Baptist churches across the Commonwealth that are part of Virginia Baptist. And then we go to our national level, which is the Southern Baptist Convention. We can be part of all three of those organizations. We can be part of one of those. We can be part of two of those and not one. We can join with the local association and not have any connection with the state or national level. We can have, there's churches within our location, within our locality here that are not part of our local association. They're not part of our state association, but they are part of Southern Baptist, and they're a Southern Baptist church, and that can work. So you can be part of any entity that you want to be, but that is a decision for the Rosedale Baptist Church. None of those entities can give us as a church direction about what we should believe, what we should do, all those things. So that is membership as that, and as such as that, you all, as Rosedale Baptist Church, as members of this church, decide those factors. So that's one of the reasons membership is important. It is democratic. We are ruled by we talk about the United States of America being a democratic nation. It is not. When we look at that, we oftentimes think about our United States, we talk about us being a democracy. A democracy, everybody has the same equal voice. Is that true in the United States? No. We look at elections, we look at things. You look at popular votes for presidents, whatever side you're on. The people, it boils down, it comes down to the electoral college. But when you get into that realm of things, we oftentimes think about we as a United States are democratic. We are not. But we as Baptists are. Everybody has, doesn't matter if you've been here for, well, we're celebrating 28 today, is that right? 28. If you've been here all 28 years of the life of Rosedale Baptist, or if you joined last Sunday, you have the same voice. You have the same vote. You know, your vote counts just as much as anybody else's. The membership retains, again, its exclusive self-government in all phases. The church membership reserves the exclusive right to determine who will be members of the church and the conditions of such membership. So we will vote. Anytime somebody joins church, especially on a Sunday morning, I don't like how this sounds, but when you join church on a Sunday morning and we go into a membership, we actually, as a Baptist church, go into a business meeting when we do that. I have seen, I'm not the moderator at our business meetings. Larry Burton is the moderator. I'm vice moderator. And I've never been a real big fan of the pastor being the moderator, because the moderator controls the meeting and oftentimes directs that meeting, and I've never been a real big fan of the pastor being a moderator in the church. But I do like to be the vice moderator, because that membership, when somebody comes to join the church, I feel that's my role as a pastor. And so actually when you join the church, you actually go into a business session. Now that don't sound good, I don't think, on a Sunday morning, but essentially that's what you're doing. We have to ask the body to vote on accepting that such member. Leadership and teaching positions are restricted to members of Rosedale Baptist Church. So any leadership position, committee-wise, and all of our teachers, Sunday school, Wednesday night, Sunday night, a lot of those leaders in those positions. When we look at teaching positions, Saturday night, Wednesday night, we do have people in place that oversee. You can be part of the, you can teach. I know this is kind of in our, and the hard part with some of these bylaws is we're getting ready to go through some restructuring of these. So some of these, our Constitution may not exactly sound the way it ought to, because like Sunday night, Wednesday night teachers, you can teach, but there has to be an overseeing teacher there with you. The reason that is because as teaching, you have to be doctrinally sound. You have to believe. Do all churches believe the same things? No, we don't. There's things that you stand on. There's things that we as mainline churches believe in. Jesus Christ, virgin birth, died on the cross, rose 3 days later. His blood was shed for the remission of sins. Those are some of the main points. If you believe those main points, we can pretty much worship together. If you don't believe some of those main points, then we're probably not going to worship together. Then you get into some doctrinal things. There are things that set Southern Baptists aside from other churches. There's some of our beliefs that don't align with other churches. So if you get in a teaching position and you don't believe or understand the Constitution or our beliefs, our Baptist faith and message, I know Larry Burton went through that last week, then you really don't need to be in leadership or in a teaching position because that doctrinal is what we're conducting. So as we look at that, that's why we restrict those to members. Comments, questions about any of the general parts of that?
I have a question just for clarification.
Yes.
So you talked about the different levels of the associations and how the church can be affiliated with one or two or all three because of what they may or may not wish to join together as other members of the community.
Yes.
Can you give me an example of something that maybe the church wouldn't do, but in conjunction with other churches within the, say, the local association that they would participate in?
I don't know that I can on the local, but I can on the state. Would that be okay? One of the things, so you're asking what's something that, let me make sure I'm understanding your question right. What's something that we will be a part of an association, but we may not agree with them exactly? Is that it?
Maybe I misunderstood what you said.
Okay.
That as a church, we can participate in and join in any of the local, state, or national level groups of
Right.
association.
Okay.
And it depends on what they are doing as to whether or not we as a church, Rosedale Baptist as a church, would want to participate in. What is an example of something that Rosedale Baptist Church would want to collaborate with at the state or national or local level?
I hope I'm understanding the question. Disaster relief. Not all the churches that are BGAB churches do the disaster relief, but we partner with them heavily in that. Is that kind of where you were going?
As an example.
Uh-huh.
But Rosedale Baptist Church has done that, even though it's not at the state level. Is that true?
No, not disaster relief. Anytime we respond on a disaster relief, we are working under the state level.
So even your situation at her,
Yes.
it's still a state level?
Yeah, that is still state level because we, Virginia Baptist, are on the scene at Hurley. So we are working under their guidelines and we do that because when that organization shows up, of course, we're protected under their insurance, which is a major deal and something like that. But also, they bring to the table monetary things. Virginia Baptist, like right now in Hurley, they're providing all the meals. They're doing about 600 meals a day. They are providing shower units, all your resources, materials to work with, that type of thing. So those things are beneficial. Now, I was trying to think of something else.
So are they not-for-profit associations?
Yeah, associations are not
So,
for profit.
is there a place that you can go and you can see what kind of programs they support?
Absolutely, yeah.
You don't have to say that here.
And
nobody else may really care.
Well, no, and I'll have some of that information next week. But our state, I would go get it now, but it's in the women's Sunday school class. But it gives you kind of a breakdown of that, and that's kind of probably where we're going next week anyway. So we'll probably clarify a lot more of those different programs.
Thank you.
And there is, there's some things that, as a locals association that we can't do. This morning you're going to be hearing about our trip to Montana. Some of that is going to be done through our local association. because we feel like we can do more together as an association of churches to meet the needs of Montana than we could as just Rosedale Baptist Church. I hope that clarified what you wanted to do. Does that help you? Okay. Candidacy, there's 3 ways to become a member of a church. By profession of faith in Jesus Christ, followed by baptism, by the promise of a letter from another church. If you come from another Southern Baptist church, we refer to it as a letter. This used to be probably not as big as it used to be, but it used to be if you moved here, and back in the 70s, you moved here to go to work in the coal mines, and you were from away from here, you moved here, one of the first things you're going to do is find your local church. You start coming to Rosedale, you say, I was a member in Timbuktu, Kalamazoo, and we would write that church and say they are now attending Rosedale Baptist Church, and they would send the letter down, and the letter generally says this so-and-so was a member in good standing. And that lets us know that you've been saved, you've been baptized, you had been taught. And Baptist Faith and Message is pretty much standard for all Southern Baptist churches. So if you come from First Baptist Church in Timbuktu, you're going to be taught the same. The beginning of the Constitution is pretty much the same for all. Well, it is the same for ours. Should be the same for all Southern Baptist churches. Now, as we get into today's and the rest of it, is going to be, that part can look different in other churches because of the governing process that each church takes on itself. So you come by profession of faith, baptism, by a letter from another church, or by a statement. When a letter cannot be obtained, the candidate is willing to be baptized by immersion, if not already so baptized as a believer. So you can come from another church, another denomination that doesn't do letters, and you say, I have been saved, I have been baptized, we will take in on a statement of faith. Following the candidate's request for membership, Rosedale Baptist Church, the candidate will be presented to the church for majority vote, after which membership form will be completed by the candidate given to the clerk. The clerk will use the information for the church records and provide a copy to the church administrator for office records. So there is a book, membership book, that is kept. Comments, questions about how to become a member or candidacy? All right, inactive. Let's say you leave the church, for whatever reason. Any member who's not attended or contributed to the ministry of the church for a period of 1 year should be placed inactive unless inactivity is due to circumstances beyond your control. When we look at this, if you haven't been to our church in a year, you become inactive. You no longer have voting rights. You are essentially no longer a member of Rosedale Baptist Church. If there's some reason, let's say you was in a car wreck and you just aren't physically able to come to church, then that's circumstances beyond your control. And that's a catch that you can do. Some of our older people, we've had some of our older people, and this has been really a hard thing to deal with during COVID, because some people have legitimate reasons, fears for not wanting to get back into large groups or gatherings. So that's one of the things that we have had to look at. Jim Bob hasn't been here in a year, but he worked in the coal mines. We know he's got black lung. If Jim Bob hadn't been here in a year, is he really scared of COVID? Is he really coming back? What's he saying? So that's where we follow up with Myself, Clyde, the deacons, somebody, we have to understand the circumstances of, COVID's been a really, really tough thing with this. It says, however, all efforts may be made to restore such a member to active fellowship before such a transfer takes place. If you haven't been here in a year, I hope that a deacon has followed up with you, because our deacons are divided. All the membership of the church is divided amongst the deacons. We're divided into, each deacon has so many families that they're responsible for. So if you haven't been here in a year and your deacon hasn't followed up with you, we got a situation. Active membership will be restored upon faithful attendance to the church for a period of 90 days. All right, so you've been away for a year. Deacon calls you up and says, what's going on? And they say, well, we've been slack. And the deacon says, well, that's okay. We'd love for you to kind of come back. And that kind of jogs you back into getting back in there. So once you're back for 90 days, your membership is restored. Any questions on inactive membership? Or, yeah. Termination of membership. Membership will be terminated the following ways. Death. One of the neatest things I've ever seen, I went to a funeral over in Hayside, and they actually had, like we would have on a Sunday morning, how you would join a church. The clerk actually come to the pastor, asked for so-and-so's letter to be transferred to her heavenly address. And it was probably one of the neatest things that I've ever seen. But essentially the clerk and the church had to vote on it for a letter of transfer. And it was probably one of the most precious things I've ever seen, one of the neatest funerals I've ever seen. But it was just so, I don't know, it was just great. But of course, membership to death, expulsion by the church, by action of the church, affiliation with the church of another faith or denomination by transfer to another church of like faith. So your membership can be terminated, you die. If the church asks you to leave, an affiliation with another church, you start going to somewhere else, or you go to another Baptist church. Should any member become an offense to the church and to its good name by reason of immoral or unchristian conduct, or by persistent breach of the covenant vows, I've already went over the covenant vows last week, so if you breach those vows, the church may be terminated the membership by 3/4 vote, but only after due notice and hearing, and after faithful efforts have been made to bring such member to repentance and amendment. Comments, questions there? Go 4 ways. If you die, the church votes to ask you to leave affiliation with another church, or you transfer to another church. Voting rights. All active members who are 13 years of age or older may be eligible to vote in church business meetings, except on legal or financial matters requiring a legal age of 18. Any member not attending services for 6-month period forfeits voting rights. This is kind of one of those discrepancies within our Constitution that we're reviewing right now. If you remember, inactive was a year. If you don't attend for 6 months, it says you forfeited your voting rights. It's a year, 6 months. So that is one of the things that we are going through right now that we're doing.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you all take attendance?
As far as who's been here and who's not, well, every Sunday morning, somebody stands in the balcony and looks down and counts. That's how we kind of take attendance. Up until this point, pre-COVID, it was getting harder. You know, when the numbers were up, most of the time, and a lot of times it puts a little bit of pressure on all of us as deacons and pastor. Most of the time, people are creatures of habit. I can pretty much tell you where you're sitting on a Sunday morning and if you're not sitting there. Most of the time. You know, that was getting tougher. The deacons are sitting in strategic places because they, you know, they're seeing what families and who their families. So if, you know, they've got, Veronica's about 15 to 18 families apiece on their list. So, you know, do what?
Probably closer to the 15 apiece.
Okay, so there's 15 families, each deacon has 15 families, so they should be able to
Notice if you're not here.
notice if you're not here.
And your Sunday school classes also take attendance.
Yep, your Sunday school classes also take attendance, so your Sunday school teachers know that too. Do what?
Or they did before COVID.
I'm telling you, COVID has messed.
At my other church, we, you know, fill out you fill out a book that they pass down the pew every Sunday. So I was just curious, I hadn't done that here, so I was like, maybe I'm supposed to sign in.
There's a screen up there when you join, when you become a member, and you'll give your thumbprints on something. But that's only, members only know that yet. But no, that's kind of how we do it. Is it the best? I don't know.
Well, I guess if somebody's regular and then all of a sudden they're not, you know this.
You know this.
Yeah.
Or you should.
Bigger problem if you're not.
People do. People know. You know, and I have, you know, like a lot of times the deacons will call me and they'll say, you know, I ain't seen Jim Bob here in a couple of days. It's like, or a couple of Sundays or whatever. I said, well, this happened. And most of us, you know, as far as deacons and stuff, and one of the greatest things in technology was texting. So we've got a group chat. So if something, you know, a lot of times when I know somebody's having surgery and I leave the hospital, I'll, you know, group chat, it goes to all the deacons, and I'll say, you know, so-and-so just got out of surgery, everything went well. So that way they know. And their deacon should know to follow up with them. Then, you know, say they visit in the hospital a couple of days and their deacon goes to visit, sends out a text message and say, hey, just stop by and see so-and-so. She's doing good, supposed to be home tomorrow. You know, so that kind of keeps everybody in the loop. And Veronica really helped out with a lot of that too, because she can, and the church is getting to where it's doing really good, because like people will call the church office and just tell Veronica need so-and-so on the prayer list, and she's good about sending out a text message if we need to know it or whatever. But that is one of the hard problems with growth, is how to organize that and juggle that and do all that. So, is it perfect? No. Are we trying? Church officers and directors, all church officers and directors will be nominated by the nominating committee and elected at the annual church business meeting. Deacons, we'll look at the deacons. There are 5 active deacons until the active membership reaches 150, at which time we will elect an additional deacon to continue to add 1 deacon per 25 additional active members. The deacons will meet at least once a quarter. We meet once a month. The deacons will serve on a 3-year rotating system. After serving a term, a deacon may be rotated off for a period of 1 year. If needed, he will be eligible to be re-elected. A couple of the things with deacons, and this is kind of changing, we're kind of involved in how we do this. This year, for the first time, we've have 2 men that are going to be shadowing deacons this year, and then when 2 rotate off at the end of this year, they will rotate on. So we've never really done this before, but what we were finding was as the church was growing and we needed to add deacons, we just couldn't really add them because we didn't have them. If you look in your Constitution, Acts chapter 6 and Timothy chapter 3 give you the qualifications of a deacon. So those qualifications, you know, we were struggling to find them. We were finding guys, we had a couple situations where we put deacons in and they got a little while into it and they're like, this is because we put some pressure on deacons. Deacons, when you're deacon here, it's not the easiest task because you are following up with those families. You are responsible for, you know, seeing what's going on. And so there is some pressure, and there's been some times that guys are like, this is just more, and that's okay. You know, that's okay. They said, this is just a little bit more than I can handle. And we understand that. So what we've done is we're going into a shadowing phase so that they can be with deacons for a year and kind of figure out, okay, yeah, this is something I think I can handle, this is something I think I can do, and or no, this is just too much. So we would rather have them figuring out that shadow session if they can fulfill the capabilities, or if they can't. And so that would be better than getting in the middle of a term and dropping it. Deacons will be elected by the church body at the annual church business meeting by secret ballot and will serve in that position upon receiving a majority of votes from the church. Should a vacancy on the deacon body arise, the above process will be used to elect the deacon to fill the remaining term. So as we look at that, and so we see that. Any questions on deacons? All right, church treasurer. Treasurer will serve 5-year term. We come in to find that we done this, changed this a little bit different a few years ago. We were in a situation, privacy is a huge thing, and if you're paying tithes and all that, that is one thing that I have no idea, don't know. They won't even give me the code to the safe upstairs. I have no desire to know who gives what, how often they give, or whatever. I have no clue. So the only time I ask anything about tithing or a tithing record is when we go to select deacons. We will present deacons. The deacons will come up with some names. We'll work with the nominating committee, and I will ask the treasurer one question. I'll say, does so and so show a record of tithing? If they're tithing, if you're going to be a deacon, you need to be supporting the church. You need to be, that's part of being a deacon. So that's the only time I ask anything about money or who tithes or who don't. And I don't know how much they do. I just ask the treasurer, do they show a record of regular tithing? And so the treasurer, we don't want everybody to know your business, so we give them a 5-year term. Debbie just got through, we elected her again this year. So she just got through pulling 5 years. She was elected for another 5 years, which I think is great, because I don't want to see that position changing a whole lot. It's the duty of the treasurer to receive, preserve, pay out all money or things of value paid or given to the church, keeping at all times an itemized account of all receipts and disbursements. Any position in a church, this is the one I would not absolutely want. I would never have a desire to be a treasurer of any church. That is such a responsibility to volunteer for. I know her duties have been eased since we were able to hire Veronica as administrator. I know that that's eased her up some, but Veronica has taken over some of this. She still don't receive tithing records. She does like the day-to-day, pays out money and does the bill pay and that type of stuff. So that took all that off Debbie. But that is one position I would want. Any question about treasurer? All right, that puts down to trustees. Trustees, there's 3 trustees that will be elected by the church to hold church property. They have no power to buy, sell, mortgage, lease, or transfer any property without specific vote of the church authorizing each action. Each trustee will serve at the pleasure of the church or until their resignation. So we've got 3 trustees. They actually hold the deed to this church. These trustees actually hold the deed to the church. These trustees, anytime if we wanted, like we bought the property across the road here a couple of years ago, when we bought that, the trustees actually was the ones that had to do that. It's actually in their name. They couldn't buy it until the church voted to buy it, but you know, they can't sell it until the church votes to sell it. You know, we're getting ready to, hopefully, as we look at addition and build on, if we build our educational wing on, you know, we're probably going to look at mortgage. They're actually going to be the ones on the lien holder. They can't, you know, all that.
So are the trustees active members of the church because it says they will serve at the pleasure of the church or until they resign?
Yes, they are members of the church.
So the trustees are active members. And does that just read different because of the role of a trustee?
Yes, trustees, once the trustee is appointed, and I'll tell you why the reason is, once they're appointed, you don't change them. They're never really changed. They're never voted on again. The only time that a trustee will serve at the pleasure of church or until they resign. So the trustees that we have in place now, they don't change because they actually have to be recorded at the courthouse. So I mean, it's just not something you want to vote on every year and change.
Right, but everything else it's always said they have to be an active member, but here it says they serve at the pleasure because of how, or the role of the trustee. Is that why it reads that way?
It's trustees. I don't know, to be honest with you. Why it does read that way.
Well, right here, yes, an officer, such have to be an active member. So it's just one of the pleasure of the church, yeah.
None of them really state that they have to be a member under each section, but it says that all leadership positions have to be members.
Yeah, that's what I was looking to see.
None of them actually state it within the section.
Yeah, where do you see
Well,
this?
your treasurer is a member.
Where does
You
it,
talk about membership over here. And it falls under membership, section 4. And section 5 talks about church officers and directors.
yeah,
So your
where does,
deacons are active members, so it's in your first sentence. I wouldn't think your treasurer would not be a member.
that's what I'm saying, but it don't say.
Well, they have to be nominated by the nominating committee.
So does the trustees. Trustees will be elected by the church. Oh, it don't say in there that they have to be nominated. Yeah, nominating committee will present the church. The trustees share pleasure. I was trying to see, and I want to do this for clarification because we're going through all this right now. I don't, does it say you have to be, I mean, you do, but does it say you have to be an active member under the deacons?
Let's just go back to section 4 where it talks about membership and what inactive membership is. It talks about COVID and how you're going to address that. Just curious.
I know that, what I'm saying is we're going through this, if it's something we need to look at, I don't see how the trustees
Yeah, make
are
note.
different than the rest of it.
Reference your nominating committee, what it says. How they would select someone to. Maybe it's in
Could your trustees not be a banker or an attorney that can hold property in your name?
No, they have to be an active member of the church.
Not a third party.
Yeah,
So it can't be a third party.
it can't be a third party. That's what that's why I was wanting to make sure we had all this right.
Yeah. And maybe it's under nomination committee.
And I think
Clarification.
Do what?
Point for clarification, right?
Yeah. But I don't see it in the rest of them where it says that they have to be an active member. I mean, it does, states that in, to hold a position you do. But I think trustees, I think the reason, and I don't know that I agree with it, Deidre, after you pointed it out, but the reason it says this is because they will not be elected every year, or they won't serve a term. They have a lifetime appointment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and on page 20, it talks about what the nominating committee's responsibilities are. They recommend persons for all volunteer positions, and they also make a recommendation when a vacancy occurs on the deacon body. They present to the church as a secret ballot vote, qualified individuals. It says who they consist of, but it doesn't say anything else about their responsibility. Or it may in a different section. It doesn't in that section.
That is their responsibility, but everybody's a volunteer for being Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Well, it says each trustee will serve at the pleasure of the church, and should a vacancy arise among the trustees, the nominating committee will present. So it doesn't mention that under nominating committee responsibilities. So maybe that's where it needs to be clarified. Sorry to distract you.
No.
It's interesting that it says serve at the pleasure of the church.
And I think the reason, but I think it needs to be clear, and I'm glad you brought it up, but I think the reason it states that is because it's a one-time appointment. It's not ever voted on again until.
But if one of your trustees was charged with something, a criminal charge,
Then,
then you're gonna have a vacancy. So
yeah,
that vacancy obviously should fall under somewhere,
It
maybe
falls-
not the nominating committee, maybe it should fall under the deacons and the pastor or somebody else.
well, it says the nominating, under the trustees, the nominating will present to the church person to fill the position.
Right, but your nominating committee responsibilities on page 20 doesn't list that.
Yeah, but I think under 17, all committees are nominated. Every position at Rosedale Baptist Church is done by the nominating committee. Except-
But if you're just asking for clarification, though, you flip over to page 20 under 17,
Right.
it doesn't list that as a responsibility.
And I think it needs to be clarified, but it says the nominating committee recommends all volunteer positions, and that's a volunteer position. But I do think I do think it's kind of, it does need some clarification, but.
Maybe it's clarified that all of them will serve at the church.
Section 4, clerk. The clerk will be nominated by the nominating committee elected at the annual business meeting. The clerk will serve a 3-year term, be eligible to be re-elected. They keep the board all action of the church. The clerk is responsible for keeping a register of the names of members, both active and inactive, along with voting eligibility, with the dates of admission, letters of transfer or death, together with a record of baptism. The clerk will issue letters of transfer voted by the church, reserve on file all communications and written official reports, and give legal notice of all meetings where such notice is necessary as indicated in the bylaws. All church records and church property, or all church records are church property and should be filed in the church office. Any questions on the clerk? All right, Sunday school director and assistant director. Pretty much the same thing. The assistant director will be, as if Sunday school director ain't there today, the Sunday school director's responsibility to supervise, organize, keep all Sunday school records, and evaluate all areas pertaining to Sunday school ministry. Sunday school director will order necessary materials and supplies for the adequate function of Sunday school. Director of music will be nominated by the nominating committee elected at the annual business meeting and shall be responsible for directing the music program of the church. Basically, anything music-wise runs through Deacons. That is Robin Scott Clough, of course, is the Sunday school director. Rick Gordon's assistant Sunday school director. Director of music is Robin Henley. Usher Coordinator is Mike Mead. The Usher Coordinator is responsible for selecting ushers for appropriate services. This was kind of important when we done the offering. Mike Mead would grab the couple in again in church and said, "Hey, help me take up the offering this morning." They take up the offering. They oversee the. We've condensed this quite a bit. Usher Coordinator, when I first came, the ushers had to be listed, and you had to vote on each usher each Sunday. What we found, you had 2 ushers that were on vacation during the summer, you couldn't take up an offer. So we worked with the Constitution Committee, dropped that up, and a lot of the things you'll see is there was some, just to be transparent with you, there was some that were overreaching different areas of the church. This was years ago, before I even got here. But some of the things you'll see is kind of some things from that. You know, you look at the voting and stuff like that. A lot of people had come, took membership, and the only time you would see them again was at a business meeting. And there would be different ones that would call get them to come to business meeting and get them to vote that way. And that's how Baptist churches, that is one flaw in their operation of how we do membership, but Rosedale had squeezed down on some of that stuff, and so that's why you're finding some of this stuff. But I've got emails, I've got phone calls over people that took up offering on Sunday morning because they weren't a member of the church, or who it was, or what it was. You know, they're not the the guys that take up offering on Sunday mornings were not the guys that were counting the money. If you wrote a check, they may have seen it as they was passing the plate. I don't know, but it's just a lot of silliness. But so this is, we just started doing an Usher Coordinator, and Mike Meade would just pick out who's going to get an offering each Sunday morning. Of course, with COVID and the way we do offerings now, take it up front, that kind of put an end to all that. So, also, the ushers will attend the needs of the congregation and the pastor during church services. So, as we look at that, you know, your ushers might want to do something, had a need, something happen within the church. You know, I know that they come in and got people, or they've had to, might have a medical situation, or down to, it's a situation that, you know, usually there's water under the pulpit area. If I get a dry hacky cough, I holler at Mike Meade and tell him to get me a bottle of water. So that's what those needs are during that. Any questions there? Taylor's is Sandy Griffith. Who else? Taylor? Alicia. Who's your Taylor?
Cindy, Darlene, Georgia's one.
Did she come back up?
Johnny.
Yeah. Okay. So these are the people that count the money on Sunday morning. Taylors are responsible for assisting the treasurer by totaling and posting monetary gifts to the church. Taylors will also report attendance records for the churches on Sunday morning. So the Taylor will they'll go get the offering, they'll take it in the office, they'll count it. The Taylors count it. There's a form that they fill out. It's got how much money is given by cash, checks, whatever. So there has to be two of them in there at one time, minimum of two tellers at once. They count the money, fill out the paperwork, put it in the safe. Debbie comes in Monday morning, she'll get it out, she'll recount it, make sure it counts up to what both the tellers said it was, and then she'll take it to deposit. Any question on that? Yes, all these have to be members. Everybody that we're talking about has to be a member. Sunday school teachers will be responsible for teaching biblical truths under the confines of biblical practices of the church. Sunday school teachers are members of the church for at least 1 year. This is one of the things that I understand why they've done this, because we want to make sure that, especially as Sunday school teachers, that they know doctrine, they know what we're teaching, they're doctrinally sound on what they teach. And you've got 1 year to kind of know them. If somebody starts coming, you've kind of got a time period. But I've always found it to be humorous. You can be a deacon before you can be a Sunday school teacher. There's no time limitation as far as the deacon, but to be a Sunday school teacher. I think this is important, but I also think that we need to look at that. All righty, let's, you got anything on our So there's assistant Sunday school teachers, they're all put in. So, that's all done there. Any question on Sunday school?
How y'all doing?
Got 3 more, rush through the 3 more.
No, we're probably done. Like Kate's already